Hey everybody, this is Tyson.
And Logan.
And you're listening to Dad, Bods, and Beards podcast. It's a show that gives you a fresh look on being a father, a husband, and honestly, a man being in today's world.
For people who want to have a good time, laugh, and be uplifted, thanks for subscribing and listening. Now for the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dad, Bods, and Beards. We are on a guest kick again, and I think that this is kind of the way that the show is going, and I think it works a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I are great, but I think I get tired of listening to just us. But we've got some of your friends in the studio today from your time on the show. Can we say the show yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Blocks.
The Blocks.
Okay, it's coming out in January. Tyson will be on the show for about 3 seconds.
2.5.
2.5. Okay.
Maybe 5.
Yeah.
But you guys, so Prentice and Megan, thank you guys so much for coming out. You came out from Oregon.
Yeah.
So you guys flew all the way out here. Thank you. That's huge.
We're
But
blessed
Like,
to have
it's
you
so
guys.
funny. It's like all the way. It's like we skipped one state. It's not that far.
I know, but like normally all of our guests have been local to Utah
Okay,
so
okay,
far.
fair.
So like you guys traveling, it means a lot to us. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
But but you guys are kind of more near because I grew up in Sacramento. So you guys are West Coast people.
West
kind of
Coast.
like me. But you're from Canada.
I'm from Canada. Yeah, I immigrated down here.
It's so weird to hear immigration.
I immigrated down here almost 7 years ago,
Canada.
and been here ever since. And
Yeah.
Officially got his citizenship.
in 2021 is actually
Tuesday was
it
his.
was my anniversary of my citizenship. 3 years on
Nice.
election day,
Today he got
On
to,
election day.
on-
Yeah.
and he got
days.
to vote in his first election.
which
Oh,
was really
awesome.
cool.
like presidential election.
So this was your first election. That's
Yeah.
cool.
presidential. He's voted in
like
local stuff.
local stuff, but it was
Sure.
nice. To
How long did
actually-
you wait in line?
In
vote by
Oregon,
mail.
we're mailing
Okay.
ballots. So Sunday I drove up to the ballot box and dropped
I
it
didn't
in.
know that.
There
Yeah.
are no in-person polling anymore.
Really?
You
Oh,
can
dang.
you can go to like the elections office, request your ballot, like if something's happened, do it right there and submit
Sure.
it, but there
didn't
isn't
know
a
that.
polling
Mhm.
location anymore.
See, I guess maybe I take that for granted anyway, because I'm like here, I become a little more introverted. I'm kind of like, you can do mail in, but then we just drop them off in person.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to go wait in line.
In Canada, I had to wait in line, and I remember the first time I voted. I was like 19. I was so excited to vote, and I stood in that line. It was like, I don't know, 30 minutes. It was a sunny day. It always seems to
Sure.
be like October when we vote in
Yeah.
Canada, and it wasn't too bad. And I started taking my kids with me when I voted, because I think it's like this sooner you get kids into
Yeah.
doing their
Well,
civic duty, it
it's
just
important to
normalizes
teach
it.
them.
So
Yeah.
And my daughter, she just turned 18 in August, so she got to vote for her first time ever.
Exciting.
cool.
And it was cool. She had I vote sticker on
Yeah.
it. She was all happy and
Yeah.
proud, as she should. It was really cool.
That's
I
the
had
downside.
fun.
We don't get stickers because
Oh, you don't?
Yeah.
mail it in.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
See, it's funny. I saw
Just go buy some.
yeah,
Just go buy an I voted sticker.
I saw a whole TikTok where the guy was like, "Who's paying for these stickers?" He's like, "Are we paying for these stickers?" He's like, "Because if that," he's like, "I deserve at least 5."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thanks for having us.
Tell us a little bit more. I mean, obviously, this is like a men's mental health, just almost mental health in general podcast. We do a lot, but tell us a little bit about your guys' stuff. Like what?
Because you are specialists, literally.
Yeah.
So we're grateful and honored that you guys are here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I tell them a little bit?
Yeah, you go for it.
So Megan was second day coach,
I think so.
second day mentor, second day coach, or whatever. And so I'm sitting here. She's teaching us. We got taught by Weston. So Wes teaches us something, and then he says, "This is what you're going to do in the class." Then she goes in here, and we learn it. We present it, and then after we present it, we go sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Then we come back to her, and she says, "What about this?" She asks us about 5 minutes, 10 minutes worth of questions, and she really like gives you insight, like, why don't you do this, or why? So not only like I went for the TV show, but I really went to learn. That was the whole
Sure.
point of going. And anyway, we got talking, and I'm like, you are just right up my alley. Like, this is exactly who we are. So I asked, like, would you be willing to be on our show? And then she's like, well, my husband's even more so. And so then I'm like, well, let's get you both on. and so so that's why they're here, is because her and I connected very like in that manner where her vibe was really well with what Dad, Bods, and Beards and what Copper Johns really is all about.
Sure.
It's about being proud of who you are, about mental health, about accepting who you are,
And
and,
I think
and all that kind of stuff.
we got to work together on branding.
Yeah.
Which was even like branding is my jam in when I do
Sure.
business consult, when I do coaching and business stuff on the side, branding and really staying true to who you are and your vision and your mission behind it. That is what I do all day. And I think being a therapist lets me like dig deeper, because somebody can give me their mission statement, but if there's not a why behind it, if there's not something that like anchors them down,
Yeah.
it's not going to last.
I love that, because on social media I talk a lot about the fact that like being authentic on social media is showing more promise than it used to be, right? Because I think the era of like the "Hey, you guys, welcome back to my channel" is kind of ending. People like the ham horn.
Gimmicky.
Yeah, people are they want to see you making your product. They want to see you, going about your day. They want to see like the authentic, real. Like some of the ones that I love are like, this is what a real house looks like, and it's not like the perfect aesthetic. It is cabinets from the 1970s because we don't have the budget to update them, or or like dishes in the sink. And so I love that kind of like the branding that's authentic to you.
Yeah.
Because
You don't have to have 6-pack abs or 8-pack to be, a proud male figure in the world, and
why
just
they
showing
call
up
it-
as
yeah.
who you are. And that's what I really have enjoyed about watching
Yeah.
the podcast with you two, because you can tell you're just two friends who are hanging out.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we like dad bods and beards. I think it's like in the title, right?
Yeah.
But so you're in therapy. You're a therapist.
Yeah. So sorry to
I'm in
interrupt.
therapy and a therapist. Yep.
Aren't we
because
all in therapy? Yeah. Like,
it's funny. We always talk about like, who's your grand therapist, because there's not very many of us really. And so it's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon,
oh, sure.
right? I'm sure there would be like 7 degrees of therapists.
Sure.
That even for folks here, even therapists here, I have to know somebody who knows somebody who went to grad school with so-and-so who practices in Utah, right? It would connect
Oh,
in
I
some
see.
way, right? Because I did grad school in New York. So I have therapists and friends and colleagues that kind of went all over the United States after.
Sure.
So it's kind of funny that we always say like,
Interesting. You're grand therapist.
your
I like
grand
that.
therapist, your great grand therapist.
So with that, you guys probably know similar clients. Like, don't work.
When we were in Canada, he supervised the adult mental health and addictions program, and I was the youth addictions, mostly working in the schools. And so it was really hard for our kids. It was like,
Sure.
nope, you're not going to their house.
We're in a town of 18,000 people.
Very
So
small town.
it was,
Very
I could
rural.
go from treating someone and then that evening be on the softball field with our girls. And now we're just talking like two dads, which is the coolest thing, because we're just two guys enjoying our kids playing ball. And that's, that way they maintain their anonymity. It's just like, hey, Bob, you know what I mean? It's just, we're just down to earth having a conversation and no judgment. Here we are, which I think
That's
that's
funny.
kind of cool about small towns.
Because when I was first going through everything, when I first started bouts in therapy, when I got my diagnosis and stuff like that, I ran into my cognitive behavioral therapist at Costco. And I was like, hey, how are you? And he's like, nope. And he's like, nope. And he like turned and walked away. He's like, kind of like, we can't really do this here, because like I'm trauma dumping every week with him. So
And
That's
you know,
so
I think it
interesting.
starts with pre-education. Like
Yeah.
when we see someone new, it'll be like, hey, we may run into each other in public.
Sure.
And if we do, how would you like me to handle that situation?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Would you like me to ignore you? Would you like me to just give you a wave? Or would you like me to say hello? Because sometimes it's weird if a client comes up to you and they're just like what you described.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Prentice. And I'm like,
you're like, no,
no,
not
no,
here.
I'm out of here. That's
That's
weird. Because what
weird.
does that tell your people you're with? Like,
Sure.
why is this guy like noping out of there right now?
Yeah.
And so it's just addressing it ahead of time. So that,
Because you get really close to your therapist, at least because you're dumping a lot on them.
Yeah.
And I know with my therapist, the first one, there was problems in my life that I didn't know were problems.
Yeah.
But he showed me in a certain way where I'm like, holy crap, that really affected me, and I didn't realize it. He's like, well, yeah, you're talking about it.
I should
You know what I mean?
I should
And so
start
like,
charging you for therapy.
yeah, right. But no, but then also because then all of a sudden I felt very close, like we were really good friends, but yeah, I was paying him and all this kind of stuff, and so I felt like I'm like, hey, we should go hang out, and I really felt that way, and he's like, nah, probably not.
can't do it. Yeah.
Can't. Yeah. Well, and we have a coffee shop across the street from the office, and I routinely will stop there before I head up to the office, and all of a sudden there was a client handing me my coffee, and I was like, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Just like I do with every other barista that's in there, right?
Sure.
Because if I were to all of a sudden, if you're handing me
Make
the
it
coffee
weird.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
that's weird because I literally go almost every day.
That's almost more
Everybody
weird
would
than-
notice, right? Like,
Mhm.
why is Megan giving you the cold shoulder? What'd you do?
Then they'd
Like,
also notice if you were buddy. And
exactly.
Well, I told her about that time that
Right,
yeah.
there was this time and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right, and so
can open some stuff that they don't want to talk
Mm.
about.
right, and so we talk about it with our clients. It's important, and part of it is destigmatizing mental health.
Sure.
Right, that's a
Yeah.
huge piece. Destigmatizing therapy, because if you talk to our parents, she goes to therapy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, even my mom who
Versus-
needs it right now.
Right.
I'm like, Mom, you need to go. Like you've gone through a lot in your
Totally.
life. You need to,
Yeah.
and she won't go.
Well,
Yeah.
I've told this story a few times on here, and I feel like it's pertinent. And I mean, it probably get told many, many times. But like as you guys know, a lot of times mental illness can be very genetic, especially the more severe chemical imbalance ones. And I kind of felt like an oddball for a long time when I was diagnosed bipolar, because I'm like, I don't have anybody that I can know of. I mean, as things have progressed, I think that my dad probably suffers from some, I don't like the word suffer, but like deals with some anxiety and depression at times in his life. My grandmother, now as I'm an adult, obviously I can see, where she may have had some situations, but her, or like a great grandfather of mine who died while riding a horse, he actually ended his own life in an insane asylum. But for generations, nobody talked about that. They created a whole new narrative of how, great grandpa had died because it was an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Versus me over here kind of like, well, okay, that's good to know of that, it's maybe part of my genetic story that, who knows down his line, but because it was none of my other siblings. They have like anxiety, depression here and there. But same thing of like, oh yeah, he hit a tree on a horse. No, he
horses are really good at avoiding trees.
yeah. Well, he,
Exactly.
instead of
Yeah.
now it's taken how many generations later to be like, well, he actually died by suicide in a facility. And it's like, it was easier for generations of people to tell that story than it is to say he was struggling because he lived in a time where you couldn't admit you were struggling.
Yeah. And there wasn't the help available, right?
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
it wasn't.
That's
it
why they
wasn't
call
Well,
it
and I mean,
practice.
lobotomies and everything.
Yeah,
It
the
was-
medications
yeah,
didn't
like,
exist that
it
I
was
mean,
like
even in our
shock
lifetimes,
therapy
what was mainstream normal treatment 40 years ago?
Well,
is-
my dad has diabetes now, and he was talking to his doctor. He's like, it seems like everyone has diabetes now, and he's like, because they're living. Because we have medication now that can help them live and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, a couple of 20, 30 years ago they weren't living, and I'm like, interesting,
They
because
were
it's the
dying,
type
yeah.
of same thing. But
I mean, there's probably, processed foods, genetically modified, all of the
Oh,
other
yeah.
things that may or may not impact it, but
But when you dunk that processed food into the genetically modified sweet and sour sauce, it
There
just
you go.
so tasty.
Next level.
can you tell it's almost lunchtime, right? But so tell us about your practice. So
yeah,
Prentice,
like let's go back to your bio,
Yeah.
because we went on a little tangent.
Yeah, it's all right.
this might be like a 2-hour episode. You guys
Yeah.
seem fun. So
Yeah, so I have been a social worker since early 2000s. We are coming up on 25 years of this work, which is, I don't feel like I'm old enough to have been doing it for 25
it
years.
doesn't feel
Try
like the
having a kid
90s
who's
was
20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like the
Got one of
90s was
those.
almost
Oh, you do?
25 years ago, right?
Yeah, no, it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, like the
right?
90s weren't that long ago.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
The 20 years ago was the late 70s, I think.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no, true,
That's
though.
what it is. So I have spent most of my adult life and my career in mental health, and met this guy 10 years ago at a bus stop in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
He was a psychiatric nurse. He's retired, practicing in Canada, and I was a social worker. So we started chatting at a bus stop. One of us was intoxicated. It wasn't me.
Nice.
And we went our separate ways, started chatting. We had exchanged contact info and started chatting, had our first date. 6 months later, I lived in Canada.
Oh, wow.
And we were engaged, and now we are married and have 2 kids and live back in the U.S. So we've immigrated back and forth a couple times. And I was working in healthcare in 2020 during, that
Yeah.
thing that we don't talk about anymore.
Sure.
And was in the emergency room doing emergency room mental health, and had left that to transition into an executive leadership role at a behavioral health hospital. That was hell. Am I allowed to say hell?
Oh yeah.
Great.
I've
That
said
was
worse.
that was hell. We'll just say it a few times. And I, about 6 months in, I was chatting with Prentice, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I changed it. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was working 14, 15-hour shifts because I had to be up and there before rounds started. I was in meetings for the first 5 hours of my day, still had to supervise my staff, still had to like cover if we were short staffed. And inpatient mental health and detox is like, we're talking about high stakes, right? You can't just wait till tomorrow.
So it's like weighing on your own mental health.
Oh, it was awful. The
Yeah.
kids started waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning just for a chance to see me. I would be there for an hour or two before night shift went home. They got off at 7 a.m. I would still be in my office when night shift walked past my office at night, coming back into work. And a friend of mine shared an essay from Elizabeth Gilbert called Not This. And it's beautiful. Elizabeth Gilbert is a fantastic author. And the gist, she does it much more eloquently than I, but the gist is, I don't know what's next, but it's not this. And I walked in and I resigned the next day.
And you don't have to know what this
You don't
is,
have to know what this is.
but it's not this.
It's not this. I was done.
like that.
And, it's like, it might not be the job. It might not be the relationship. It might not be the house. It might not be the
But
city.
it's not this.
But it's not this.
Which means you're destined for something greater.
Right. Well, for me, it was really prioritizing my mental health, my physical health, and my family, my kids, our life together. And
We were ships passing in the night. Like, I worked Monday to Friday as a manager at an outpatient, substance use treatment clinic. And I was also managing a detox. And she worked weekends essentially prior to that. And then she switched to this executive job and then these long hours. So I just wasn't seeing her. And I'd have to wait up for her to get home. And then it's like, okay, now what? Okay, we've got enough time to sit in front of the television and zone out to decompress our day because we both had a horrible day. And now it's like, just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Every day.
You become roommates at a time. Yeah. I mean, like, it's rough.
So 4 weeks before Christmas, she's like, I'm going to quit my job.
And he's like,
"You're
what
gonna-
the
like,
hell?
hey."
You're like,
And to his credit, though, he said, okay, like,
Sure.
because he knew how much it was weighing on me, how hard it was for our family system. And I had this plan I took a couple weeks off. I had given notice in executive leadership. They usually walk you out they don't let you give the,
Oh yeah.
work
I've
through
worked
the
in one of
notice.
those industries. Yeah.
So that I was, it was weird. It was like a week and a half into the 4 weeks notice. And they were like, today's your last day. And HR sat with me while I packed my office, which is so weird because like, why does HR need to sit with me? It's bizarre, but that's fine. Went home. I was going to, take the week off. It was the beginning of Thanksgiving week, was like Monday or Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. Was going to take that week off and then just start private practice again, because I had previously done some private practice. And we decided if I could have about 6 to 10 clients in the next 4 to 6 months, we'd be okay, because I could schedule that around his work schedule. We would be saving. We wouldn't have a nanny anymore. We wouldn't have all the daycare expenses.
Yeah.
The kids were home. It was still COVID. Olivia was turned 3 and Owen was 5. So Owen was in kindergarten. My mom was coming over to help him do kindergarten online.
Yeah.
Olivia was barely getting the beginning of preschool, and I quit, hoping that this was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And by Christmas, I was full, and 2 folks who had come to work with me at the hospital had left the hospital to join us in our clinic,
Wow.
and it was no longer a private practice, and it was a group. And now over the last 4 years, we have built it. We have 23 staff.
Wow.
Over 600 clients currently, thousands that we've helped over these 4 years.
I think about 2,500 people
Yeah.
that we've helped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely was not that. It's
It-
this.
It's
now.
this.
It's this.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even we lived in a lovely home in a neighborhood. and it felt too small. It was not a small home, but it felt boxed in. Now we have a 10-acre farm.
Gosh, that's
And
awesome.
we got to create and build our dream house, and we have horses and goats and kittens, and gonna add chickens, and we had a huge garden this year, and like that's the life that we get to live now.
That's
and
cool.
And both of our mental health is better for
Oh
it.
my
Our
gosh.
kids' mental health is better for it.
Yeah.
I just, it's night and day compared to where we were 2 years ago. even.
See, I love this because it's like that's the thing that like holds all of us back, right? Is like, oh, I can't because of security or because of, comfort level, or so like taking that super risky shot in the dark. I mean, obviously we all know people who've taken the shot and then fell on their face.
Yeah.
And it happens.
Oh,
But-
and we've fallen.
Oh,
And-
sure.
and it hasn't all been great. And the thing is, 4 weeks later, I gave my notice
Oh, wow.
because I read not this. And then I gave
Maybe
4
I shouldn't
weeks.
read this.
And they
No,
well,
you
maybe
should.
it'll reaffirm where you're at and
Mhm.
why you've made previous decisions in your life. And I gave my 4 weeks notice. They let me work it out the full 4 weeks. I worked hard until the end of that 4 weeks. And, you know, then it was like, okay, now we're all in. And because we had to be all in, we've got a good friend in Canada who's an artist, and his name's Andy. And Andy, we met him at the farmer's market, and he used to do art on the side. And as soon as he quit his job and had to do art for a living, this guy's career's exploded. And he does huge paintings at hotels
Don't look at me.
that get shifted.
Artinbc.com.
Artinbc.com. It gets shipped everywhere, all over the world.
All
And the
over the
cool
world.
thing is, he does his art is just simply amazing.
Spectacular.
And it was that leap of faith
Well, yeah.
that took him to the next level, where he is now just out of this world.
How do you take that leap of faith when it's just not you?
See, it wasn't me, because I'm not a risk taker. It's really hard.
No, dead serious, because like Logan and I are both there.
Yeah.
How do you take that risk when you have a family
You
you're
have,
supporting?
yeah. I
You
mean,
have to believe in the product and believe in what you're doing. And I think for us, what I did is I took a security blanket contract for 1 year at a college that I was teaching at in Canada. I took a 1-year quality assurance position as a quality assurance manager.
Mhm.
And it was a really low salary compared to what I was earning previously. But it was enough,
to make the
that
mortgage
if
if
we
we
had
had
to
to,
make a
we would.
mortgage payment. And I've had other friends. I had a buddy who had worked at a casino as a dealer, and he was there, and what he did is he saved enough money. He hustled hard for 2 years, saved enough that if he had to, he could pay his mortgage for 12 months. And he went into real estate. And this was, I think, like 14 years ago, and he's still doing real estate full time.
Good for him.
And this is a guy I've known since kindergarten. And just that inspired me. Like, people do this,
Yeah.
and it works. And the funny thing is, just a year before we started our clinic, not even the spring before we started our clinic, a large insurance company that I shall not name had reached out to me to become an agent. And I took their online test, and I failed. I wasn't risk tolerant enough. I was like, no, because they ask you all these questions about like,
Yeah.
because in insurance, it's an industry that's feast or famine. You've got to
Oh,
really
yeah.
build your
I
book
was
of
an
business.
insurance agent for a long time.
And
Yeah.
so I did not have the risk tolerance. So to me, it's kind of like, in many ways, this is like providential. It's all worked out the way it's meant to be. I have a lot of faith, and but in the beginning, it was scary.
I
Yeah.
also have a really healthy dose of ADHD.
Oh, yeah. High five, sister. I'm with
I
that-
don't know what that's like.
That he's like, aren't you stressed about this? And I'm like, no, it'll be fine.
I'm the worrier. I was just like,
No, it'll be fine, because I'm the dreamer. I'm the like head up in the clouds. Of course it's going to be fine, because it has always been fine. My ADHD superpower has always been being able to get whatever it is done, even if it's literally at 11:59 and 48 seconds.
Which that's
I
when
hit
you
that
almost,
button before midnight. It's done.
and that's when you almost get it done better. Is
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
I waited
yeah.
till the last minute. I had 12 seconds to spare.
Mhm.
I'm that person. So I don't worry about it. We I don't know if you guys heard, there was a big cyber attack this year on healthcare, and
I did.
that halted almost all of our insurance payments for almost 2 months.
Oh goodness.
And thankfully we had, because he's not very risk adverse, we had been able to, over the last several years, have quite a savings. And to make payroll, we have, again,
And payroll's stupid.
Yep.
I'm there. I
Like
understand.
for us, like our payroll,
It's
you know,
about
is like
$55,000 to $60,000
$60,000 twice a month. Right?
Yeah.
And then you have taxes on top of that.
And you're responsible for all those people. Like you feel
Yeah.
like if we don't do this, we're letting all those people
That's
down.
where so I work for my brother right now doing excavation, and he's built a pretty sizable excavation company in the last 8 years, and that's about what payroll is. And when you get shafted by somebody who's supposed to pay the bills, or you get a hiccup like that,
It's hard.
that those reserves, they empty out quick.
Yeah.
Real
Every
quick.
2 weeks, I mean, within 2 weeks, you're over six figures
Yeah.
of expenses.
Yeah. We took our first
Yeah.
loss last quarter because in insurance and in healthcare, you're also about 6 to 8 weeks behind. So the services that we provided in February and March during that episode wouldn't have paid out until like April or May
Yeah.
anyway. And so we started seeing that ripple effect, and not only were we not getting paid during that time because nothing was processing, we couldn't submit claims, we couldn't get paid on claims,
Oh goodness.
but we continued providing those services every week to every client, all 600 of them,
because it's important.
because we're
right
not
thing to
going to interrupt their care. That's our value. Our mission statement is to provide high quality mental health services to all people in Oregon.
Yeah, and I think that is, and we've had conversations on this almost exact topic with Trevor Farnes, who created Mountain Ops, which is one of our big sponsors on the show. It's a supplement company, but he has his core values that he does not budge from, and when it's based in, empathy and love and gratitude and just common decency, I think that's where you see the companies that make it through the hard times because you don't alter off the the path of your core values, because that's what keeps people coming back, is that like, hey, when times were tough, they didn't throw me to the wolves, and like, hey,
We have a couple patients that we've been seeing, clients that we've been seeing for years, and we're just starting to get paid for them now because of insurance hiccups and changes, and then they were with a provider who wasn't eligible to bill that insurance even though we were told they could, and it becomes this nightmare, and they have an amazing rapport and relationship. I wasn't going to make them change or stop their therapy. We just lost all of that income. But we've had these hiccups this year. We've had these setbacks, and our kids did the Run for the Arts relay a month ago, and I donated, and he saw how much I donated. There was a comma for both of them. And he was like, we don't even know if we're going to make rent and payroll. How are you doing this? I was like, it'll be fine. It will be fine. And
It's fine.
It's fine.
Fine.
Because the other part is having the faith that it will right side itself.
Mhm.
And by doing the right thing, by doing the next right thing, I mean, Frozen 2. is
oh,
good.
don't, yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I'm a
Just
Disney
do
dad.
the next right thing. You don't have to know what's coming 5 years from now. You just have to do the next right thing. And that was ensuring that we made good on the promise that we had committed to the school.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't about to go to our kids' elementary school and be like, sorry, we can't really do that now. Because they had been counting on that. And that was really
awesome.
important.
Same with our staff. We had just announced raises. We had just announced we changed our
goodness.
sick time policy to be like, we'll pay your full clinical rate. So you're like talking about paying people
We
like
were paying
hundreds of dollars for the day when they're sick and there's no income coming in from that person now. Versus maybe like it would have been restricted to maybe $150 before. And now it's like $400, $500 for that day.
It used to
And
be an
we had-
admin rate, and now it's their full clinical
And
rate.
so it's like when you're paying someone that much to be homesick, but that was our value because we want people to take their sick time when they need it.
Yeah.
You need to look after your people because this is a high stress business, and you have to look after your people because they can't pour from an empty cup. So,
And I think that's the values we were talking about, right? And making sure your mission statement is anchored. That, after this week, I reflected, I had feelings, and now I sent an email yesterday to the team that said, we started this clinic in a different political climate during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We have grown. We have weathered stressors. stressors will continue to come at us and we will continue to weather them.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe more in our mission now than I did then. And it's the same exact mission. It hasn't changed, because when it truly is deep and resonates to the soul, it's really easy to stand behind, and it's really easy to let that guide you. And our mission for clients, right? But our value system is to change how behavioral healthcare is provided. And for us, I don't see clients anymore. I'm 25 years. I'm maxed out.
Yeah.
What I can do is support a team who provides amazing care to clients. What I can do is support student interns who are getting their master's degree, who want to be therapists, learning and getting the great training that our clinic can provide, helping clients along the way. And so part of that, especially coming from Canada, we pay 100% healthcare, not only for our staff, but the majority for the families.
Yeah.
Wow.
We instituted a loan reimbursement because you aren't really eligible for any of the loan forgiveness. And if you are, you have to wait 10 years and be at the same employer that qualifies. And it's hard to get student loans forgiven in our industry. So out of our profit a year ago, we instituted a student loan reimbursement program.
Wow.
We have like comprehensive benefits. We have everything because we have to take care of our staff who are taking care of the clients and the people that we work with.
Well, I'd like to see that kind of stuff because for so long, I mean, we all have probably, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, people who are just kind of like a guy I used to work with. I used to help manage a trucking company, and he is one of those guys that he was like 55, but he looked like he was 70, like 75. And he is like, well, first work and then family. I'm like, whoa, Greg. I'm like, back up a little bit, buddy.
Hold up.
But that's just, unfortunately, the mentality that existed, not just in the United States, in a lot of countries where it just was kind of like, you just...
well, everybody calls it the work-life balance.
Yeah.
Right? And when you say that, what's the
Work.
the priority? Yeah.
Work.
When we talk to our staff, we call it the life-work balance.
Well, and we have a coach we're working with. He's been on the show, just young, fiery guy. He just did an Ironman, but it's called Neuromastery, and it's pretty much not just physical health, not just mental health, but also spiritual health, and just encompasses everything. And he's working with both of us on time blocking, and working for my brother as the number 2 in the company. A lot of times, as a salaried employee, I don't have set hours. Mm-hmm. So in the winter, my pay doesn't fluctuate when the hours are a little bit less, but in the summer, it's like 70 hours.
Yeah.
And there's times where Dad, Bods, and Beards will kind of suffer because I don't have the time to manage the social media the way I need to. But one of the things that Brock has put on me is like time blocking and boundaries of like, this is the time I have for you for work between this time and this time. And after that, we need to like predetermine, I'm like, and talking to him is like, well, that's great. But in construction, let me explain to you how that doesn't really fly if somebody ran over a fire hydrant.
So this was, you guys didn't get it as much. I think it started really on day 3, and I forget what day 3's topic when I was on the blocks. But I became like the person. They're like, tell them about the boundary thing. Tell them about the boundary thing. Like everybody was like, oh yeah, just wait till you get Megan. And by day 5, no spoilers, but day 5, you get to request a coach or a judge to work with. And mine was overflowing. Not everybody got to come in. Half of the people at that point, kind of like what Tyson was saying, knew that they weren't going to win. They weren't in the top. They hadn't been on stage yet. And they're like, can we just skip the questions? Like, I don't care if I get a 0 because I'm scoring them on how they're answering and engaging with the questions.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't care if I get the 0. I need you. And I need this 20 minutes that I have with you. And I'm like, yeah.
So then they sit back and they're like, so when I was a kid.
No, it was all about, it was interesting. It was all about boundaries. It was all about branding, and it was all about shifting their mindset. Right.
Yeah.
And so what I would tell you if we were having this conversation, wait, we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
What I would tell you is that by having boundaries, it actually makes people respect you more.
It does. Yeah.
And it creates more value for your time. So when you have time to give them, even in the construction industry, even in high, demand times.
Yeah.
Yes, there's an emergency, but as long as you have the policies and procedures in place to manage the emergency, why are you as number 2 the one taking it?
Yeah. Well, that's just, it's interesting how it works, right? Like I love that you said that. I mean, that's the thing is, it's finding that balance of kind of like, also a lot of it is internally of like, oh, I feel like it's my brother and I feel like I have to be there because I don't want to have it all on his shoulders because he does take on a lot of it. So
Sure.
I
it's
should,
this-
I must.
yeah,
That's
or
why
like
the SOPs
I'm
are
like,
so
hey,
important.
I'm gonna be the
Yeah.
last one holding a bucket of water when this thing burns down because I'm your
Mm-hmm.
brother and I want to build this with you. And so it's like the boundaries. I was talking to him. I was like, not just in work, but in in blocking family time to make sure like this is uninterrupted. And then like
Yeah.
like he's making me get up and go to the gym in the morning, so like I have time
Yeah.
for. Yeah, I'm getting up at like 5. It's 5:15. And
Oh my God, because he like loves you and cares about you and wants you to be healthy.
I know, right?
I hate that
And then
for
and then
you.
when I do, and I'm like, man, I am ready for the day. I'm like, it's 7 a.m. and I'm pumped, and my wife's like, you're too much. Like, go take a break. But it's realizing that like, oh, so the time blocking, the boundaries, they're not for other people. I'm realizing they're for me, and that's when it clicks of kind of like, oh, this means, oh, I'm more productive. Weird how that works. So
You're not drained.
I'm
Well,
still
you're not
drained, but I just
multitasking.
yeah.
Well, mine is like the most creative stuff is in the morning, and the more daily tasks of the stuff that you don't want to do that you have to do is at the very end because no matter what you have to do that, but it's not creative.
Yeah.
It's paying bills.
So like
It's
my
doing the-
editing
like-
and my
So
stuff at the end.
if I was working with you, I would tell you to flip it
Oh, really?
because what do you like doing?
Nothing. No, I'm sure.
The creative stuff, right? Like
I
you
do.
enjoy the creative stuff. So why are you giving all of your best energy to that? Right? It would make sense. But if you gave your top focused energy to the hour of stuff that you need to get done, you would get it done in an hour and you would have the rest of the day for the really good stuff versus having less energy, less focus. It's going to take 2 or 3 hours to get through
The
the
mundane.
mundane, boring stuff at the end, which then eats into time with your family,
Oh.
eats into all the other stuff. If you
I
did
like
it
how we both did it.
first, get it done, you're focused, you're energized, you're awake, you're ready to do the day. Time blocking is fine. It's not something that I usually advise people of because
Sure.
the organization of it can get tricky, right? Get the boring stuff out of the way, and then you've all of a sudden opened up way more time for the fun stuff,
Okay.
which will naturally energize you through the day.
It's true because we'll be drained. Like we
Well-
will be drained when we meet each other
Yeah.
from the day, and then we'll start doing our reels.
Yeah.
And then we have so much energy, and all the creative juices start
Yep.
flowing. And I like that. That's smart.
Do I find
You must
I-
be like a therapist. Like,
Weird.
What I find myself doing a lot is, and this goes back to mental health struggles and mental illness struggles and stuff where I was completely undiagnosed, unmedicated, and just not doing good. I like will sometimes when I'm in a funk, I will like reclaim my time at night and stay up too late doing nothing, like doom
I like
scrolling.
how Prentice is
I've
low-
never.
Or
have
like-
you ever? I've never done.
Doom
never.
scrolling
That's
and
my-
like I know
that's
that's
my
like a
thing.
common thing, right? And like as somebody who is very on the the neurologically spicy scale myself, being ADHD and everything, is that like I will find myself like when I'm in those funks, like sitting there on the couch with the TV on, doom scrolling, and I'm like, this is doing nothing for me, but it's allowing me to just like shut it all off.
She asked me like,
Decompression.
"What are you doing? What are you doing on your phone?" And I'm just like scrolling while we're watching TV, or just
Yeah.
God, I have to do it. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's a weird. This is like my new addiction.
Yeah.
that
That's why
lets my
guys take so
brain-
long in the bathroom, right? We're
That's
just
it,
sitting there
yeah.
decompressing.
Well, and it's also I think about like your brain is also processing and categorizing and cataloging everything from the day, and so it's doing all of that
Yeah.
behind the scenes processing, and it's part of it's conscious, part of it's unconscious,
Mhm.
right? And there will be times where we're scrolling and it'll be like, oh, did I remember to tell you? And clearly my brain got to that part of the day, or it's something on the scroll was like, oh, I forgot I need to tell you this. And it's interesting. I do not in any way encourage people to not take medication as prescribed. In fact,
Mhm.
I'm a huge advocate for
Yeah.
medication and working with your prescribers, and
That's why Logan takes Viagra every day.
love that.
Gosh. There's his jokes that just come out, but yeah.
But I realized partly when my mental health got better, when I was able to manage my anxiety, because ADHD and anxiety dance
Oh yeah.
a lot together.
With a lot of left feet.
With a lot of left feet, and it can get really challenging. The more I'm able to manage my anxiety, I noticed the ADHD symptoms were a lot less.
Yeah.
And I, in consultation, like with Prentice, similar to what we were talking about, like we had this long conversation. He notices things way before I would notice them in myself.
Always.
So, hey, I'm going to stop taking my ADHD meds. Let's see how this goes. And it's been almost 2.5 years not taking meds for ADHD, and then not having to take the anxiety meds, because I was able to then keep working on and really focusing.
Well, so I have, my therapist is basically, we went for a couple of years, and he's basically like, you need medication. He's like, there's no reason for you, everything we've hashed out, there's zero reason for you to feel the way you feel. Yeah. Like this is chemical. Yeah. And so I started taking it, and then my therapist, or not my therapist, the doctor basically said, okay, this is going to be a year process. He's like, we're going to get you up there, and then we're going to take you off. This medication is really just going to reset your brain.
Yep.
And I didn't know that's what it does. I thought you're supposed to be on it for the rest of your life. He's like, no, this will just teach your brain how, like, it's just going to rewire it, like where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
When I was a psychiatric nurse, I'd always tell people, like, listen, this is a right now thing, not a forever thing.
Yeah.
And even if it is a forever thing, say someone has a really severe and persistent mental illness, let's just say schizophrenia, they're likely going to need to be on some kind of neuroleptic agent for the rest of their life, right? But it's about how much, and can they maintain the level of functioning they want. One of my favorite people I've ever worked with, her name is Amanda Schell. She has schizophrenia, and she started as a clubhouse worker, and she started the clubhouse in our little town in Canada. Then she wanted to be, and she was the peer support coordinator. She was really big in peer work and peer support. And she came to me because we had a vacancy for a community mental health worker. She's like, Prentice, I don't have the education. Do you think I could do it? I'm like, you are more qualified than anybody. Yeah. And this person is someone who's living with schizophrenia, takes their medication, knows what it's like when she doesn't, but is on just enough that she can still function. She still has her, extra perceptual experiences. It's like she still hears voices from time to time. She still has her experiences, but enough that she can control and live her life. And to me, that's what's great. Medication is a right now thing. Yeah. Work with your prescriber. You may have to be on it forever, and that's okay too. But it's about finding what works best for you.
How do you, like we were talking about this before, how do you you guys know obviously the value. We know the value of therapy. We know the value of talking to someone through your problems, and because there's something about therapy. The therapists have obviously the education to help, but mine, I didn't realize, like, I was so nervous to go because of the stigma of growing up, and like, oh, I'm in therapy, something's wrong with me. And when I went to him the first time, literally, I broke down. I don't cry. I cry a lot, I guess.
You do
but I broke down, and I started crying, and I didn't know, like, there was a problem where he saw something, and we just talked. But it's like you guys asked the right questions to get to the right place. And so how do you get someone like me previously, like in my previous life, so to speak, how do you get someone who doesn't want to do therapy because they don't feel the value, or they're embarrassed, or something like that? How do you make them understand that this is for you? This is good for you.
So my boss put, I don't know what size shoe she had, but a big boot in my ass because I needed therapy.
Yeah.
So during COVID, I was not myself. I couldn't get home to Canada. The borders were closed. Yeah. I had kids up there that I couldn't see, my older children, like family up there that I couldn't see. It was hard. And I've worked in mental health since 2004. And finally, 2020 came. It was July of 2020. She's like, Prentice, something's wrong. And I had to admit that I needed to go see someone. I had never been in therapy before, even through like horrific stuff in my life.
Knowing what's going on.
Even knowing as a clinician, didn't go. Yeah. And so once I finally did, I was like, what was I waiting for? Yeah. And I spent 3.5 years in therapy with my counselor. He was great. Leland we met weekly, then it was like every couple of weeks. Then for the last 1.5 years, it was just every month because I just needed somewhere to put stuff. And I only just graduated therapy in March. And after 3.5 years of work, And you know what he said to me is it's okay to be here right now. And he talked to me about this book and I read it. It's called I Don't Want to Talk About It. And it's a guide to men's depression or something like that. This author talks about men just don't want to talk about it, right? I don't want to admit that I've got something wrong with me. And so I think it's just normalizing and helping people realize that you are a human being having a human experience. We're allowed to have a wide range of emotions. You know, for me, I guess I was always in touch with that more feminine side of myself because I was raised by a single mom. So I'm like, it's okay to cry. If I had to cry, it's fine. I don't want to be seen as quote unquote weak, but it's not weak. It's me expressing what I need right now and saying what I need. And early in our relationship, I had something pretty horrific like happen in my life with my daughter. And it was horrible. And Megan was there and was super supportive. And you know, I cried. Like I had to be vulnerable. We were new in our relationship and here I am like crying, just blubbering like a baby. And she held the space for me like a partner.
And this was at the bus stop.
And this was, you know, exactly. Exactly. And so I think when the best thing you can do as a therapist is just be a person, right? Yeah. Be that person and just listen and hold the space, keep it safe. And
so can I ask you that?
Yeah.
As a therapist, what is going through your head when we're bearing our soul?
You know,
because I always wonder, because I'm like, are they thinking I'm crazy weird right now? Like, is there really like what are they thinking? Because like you said, like you go see your friend, like at the baseball game.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting part. We are also human, walking with you on a journey, right? And my biggest goal as a therapist is to work myself out of a job. When I meet with somebody, I tell them that I think there's an idea, right? There's the like laying on the couch bearing your soul picture of therapy that we all grew up seeing.
Yeah.
And we have colleagues, I know people who are like, oh, I've been seeing my therapist for 8 years. I'm like, your therapist sucks. What the have they been doing for the last 8 years that you need to see them every week?
That's funny.
Doesn't mean that it's not episodic, but it means that in the first session, I'm saying, what are you wanting to work on? And how will we know when you're ready to be done? And then it's like car maintenance. You will have to come in for a tune-up. Life will happen. Something will come up and you'll come back in and we'll do it again. But the next time it might only be 3 or 4 months. This time was 8 months. And then the next time is 3 or 4 months. And then, you know, we might have these check-ins every, you know, then you're like, I don't see you for 6 months. I don't see you for 1.5 years. And then you come back and you got to check in. And I remind you of all of the things, right? Yeah. Because I think people forget that it's not us. We aren't the magic.
Yeah. You're doing the work.
We're showing you that you have the magic that you need to overcome whatever it is that you're walking through. We're just, I use analogies a lot. I use sports analogies a lot, and I use travel and Top Gun.
But as therapists, though, do you feel what they feel? Like, do you... Like, that's what I mean, though, is like...
Some people do.
There's some people there's transference and there's counter-transference if we're getting really technical on how they educate you. And so, like, sometimes there'll be someone... I had this weird situation where I had a client through a needle exchange program, and just his eyes reminded me of my mom. And for whatever reason, it was too much. Every time I saw that guy, it was really hard because I had this weird counter-transference where I would treat him differently because of that. It wasn't therapeutic. So I had to recognize that and tap myself out. And there's times where stuff will just come up because, again, we're human. Yeah. Where someone's going to remind you, if you're someone might remind me of my kid or whatever else. It's not going to be therapeutic if I don't bring it to my awareness. Sometimes you can bring it to your awareness and work through it. Other time and seek supervision around it with your supervisor. But if you're not able to, you're not doing anyone a favor by trying to push through that, because you can actually do more harm than good. And so instead, what we're really trying to work on is empathy, not sympathy, right? Again, this is like
that's good.
Pretty technical, right? Like as far as, you know, when I used to teach students, I was a professor for 7 years, but it's like I want to be able to try to seek to understand. I don't need to feel exactly what you're feeling to understand what you're going through. Because again, who is the master of you?
Yeah,
You are the master of you. I don't know your story. I can't possibly walk a mile in your shoes. I truly can't, because I don't have all of your collective
History.
experience leading up to that. I used to teach nonviolent crisis intervention, and we used to take a can of Coke and shake it. And we'd say, okay, so today you're going to deal with this person, and you're going to be the last person that tells them no. But everything that's happened up to them, they missed the bus driver, they didn't have the exact change. The bus driver went on the bus. That's one shake of the can. They got to the grocery store and they couldn't afford all their groceries, so they walked out. That's another, or their WIC card wouldn't work. That's another shake. So everything that happened in their day is a shake of the can. Well, imagine your lifetime. You amplify that by your length of your life. Who wants to crack that can of Coke open? It's just going to spray everywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't need to fully know what your life was. I need to just sit and bear witness and be with you. And if we can sit there and look at the problem together, and I'm just there as a skilled helper, really, because that's my goal, is to be a skilled helper. I'm not the expert. You
Well, I
are
like
the
that.
expert.
I like that can of Coke analogy, because I mean that applies a lot of what we talk about here is also like dad issues and like
Yeah.
husband issues and just your partner issues, all that kind of stuff. And you think about like the stereotypical like dad comes home, can of Coke was shaken
Yeah.
all day
long.
and then your kid pops that
Everywhere.
top and
Yeah.
dad's a jerk. And
Yeah.
it's like, because dad didn't learn how to like
Yeah.
bring it down, be like, hey, don't, like give me a minute, let me decompress, or kind of finding these healthy.
Asking for what you need.
Yeah. Well, and
it.
that's the thing too, is we've talked about the fact that like,
What if you don't know what you need?
yeah. Well, because
And
guys
that-
are bad communicators.
Right. So like one of the things that we're raising, two therapists are raising kids, right? So
Sure.
our kids are going to need their own therapy to untherapy whatever we've done, but that's
Therapy, the
fine.
therapy.
Yeah. But two things that come up a lot with our kids is you have to use your words,
Mm-hmm.
and what does your body need right now?
Oh, interesting.
Which is a different way of what do you need?
Mhm.
What does your body need right now?
It's a different way to think about it.
It's about
Yeah, like-
sensations
Because-
versus
so
feelings.
So when you
need a
arrive home at
massage.
work,
Yeah.
right, but when you arrive home from work, and you're sitting in the driveway or sitting in the garage, wherever you park your car, and you turn off the ignition, I work with folks a lot to pick a spot, and this was 25-year-old advice from when I was a student intern. My mentor and my field instructor told me, pick a spot halfway. It's really helpful if you take like an interchange and like switch highways, or there's a major intersection that you go through, but that becomes your switch. Okay.
Oh.
So leaving home in the morning, going to work, it's home until you get to that spot. Then it's a mental switch, work. Right. So you just literally can mentally flop, leave it right there on the side. And then that's when you start going into work mode. I need to make sure I follow up on this. I need to return that email. I need to make sure that invoice gets sent. I need to plan X, Y, and Z, whatever it is.
Sure.
But what if you're apprentice and you work from home? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just like
No,
No,
so
curious.
for
no,
me-
it's
because
great.
it's a big.
It's
it
still
seems like it
still
happens.
take a shower. We were having this conversation the other day.
okay.
Take a shower, put your damn work clothes on. If you're going to work in your like sweats and a like
I used to work just in pajama pants, and then I put on polo just so I could be on Zoom calls and stuff. And she's like, "No, you need to like
Start going to
embody
work.
like you're going to work."
Okay.
Because it
Go
was
to
getting,
work.
I was too out of routine. And then even now, like being on a farm, I do morning chores. Once I'm done the morning chores and I come in, shower, now
That's
I'm in
get
work
ready
mode.
for work.
Now I'm in
So
work.
that's the
There's that
transition.
demarcation for
Well, that's
me.
what it's kind of like you're talking about.
I like that.
It could be walking the kid, coming back from walking the kids to the bus stop or taking the kids to school and walking back in the house.
Work.
You're walking into work. So what do you need to do to get ready to be at work?
Well, like you said, it's that mindset switch, right? And I kind of like what you said earlier, kind of like talking about the magic, because one of my favorite quotes is saying that the magic that you're looking for is in the things that you're avoiding, right? And a lot of times it's with men, it's the conversation, it's sitting down, and we've talked a lot about people who are in a traditional relationship of maybe like a man, like husband and wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Having a woman that can hold a space for a man that maybe is a little bit more closed off to emotions and vulnerability and things like that, it makes all of the difference in the world. Had I not had my wife in my hardest times, I physically would not be alive.
Yeah,
She
absolutely.
grounded me to a point and held so many spaces for me. Like at her expense. I mean, at like the expense of her happiness and her peace and things like that, that it literally like rewired my brain to stay alive for her and my
And
children.
especially if you couldn't trust a female in your life previously fully,
Sure.
or, and like, or if that wasn't always the safe space, if
Mhm.
women have not always been the safe space for you, being able to have that in your partner is gold.
Yeah.
Like for me, that was certainly not like in my earlier life, my first marriage, my wife like used to beat the shit out of me. She was
Oh
horrible.
goodness.
Like domestic violence was huge. I
sorry.
stayed for 3 years too long. And once I left, it was like that's how my brain was framed. I had to tell her early in our relationship, you can't even like pretend to smack me because like or fake like whatever, because I'm gonna like my startle reflex is gonna be like
Sure.
thinking I'm getting beat now, right? And this is like it's on and being man, I'm not gonna hit a woman back. And so I stayed in that relationship for 3 years too long. It wired my brain of can't trust, can't trust, can't trust.
Yeah.
And then with Megan, early in our relationship, like I said, I had a really horrific experience of my daughter was abused by her mom's boyfriend. So it was like this is like horrible,
Yeah.
right? Like as a
very
dad, you can't
triggering.
really think of anything that you could think that would be much worse rather than losing a child.
That's the worst.
And she held the space, and not as a therapist, but
Yeah.
as a partner.
Yeah, because your partner.
And
exactly.
just being able to be the person who I cried to, be the person who just like could say, yeah, it's not going to be okay right now, and it's okay that it's not okay. Like just normalizing the
Yeah.
feelings you're having, because they're not normal feelings.
Well,
You have a full range of like, I want to kill this guy. Oh my
Yeah.
God, how could I have not seen it? Like all the things you go
Yeah.
through. And in any emotional trauma, I think we all go through that gamut. You could be in a car accident and have the same range of how could I have been so stupid? How could, all of the things. And just having someone who's like, grabs your hand and it's like, it's okay. We're going to get through this. It just keeps you.
How do you create that safe place? Like for me, so without going into detail in my life,
Yeah.
I had a child in just what
a care facility.
care facility for a long time, and when we went there to visit, we had 10 hours one day once a month, and we would go there and we would sit, and the lady, the CEO, the whoever, it would be you, she came and talked to us and told us, hey, this is what your child's going through, this is what they feel, we want you to explain to her how you're feeling and how you're doing and all this kind of stuff, and give us your insecurities. And my wife Candace came out with some of her insecurities, and it killed me. I didn't know she was going through that, and like literally it destroyed me. Like, how can I not know how she feels?
Yeah.
So how do you as a husband make sure to take care of your wife and make sure that she's getting taken care of? Because sometimes I'm so wrapped up in my business, I'm in my life, making sure that they're okay, that I forget them, like the whole reason why I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
And so how do you do that?
For me, I think it's just because people always ask us, you work together, you live together, right? You
We
run
have
this
two business
business.
together-
Yeah, we have
two
two businesses
businesses.
we run together. How do you do it? And I think it's about, we make really intentional time. Like, so if we're having our time where we're having a conversation, we'll let the kids know, mom and dad need to talk right now, because we could just be sitting on the couch having a conversation, and
Fine. Kids can come up and interrupt, no big deal.
But if
if
we're having like that like a deep conversation, it's, you know what, guys, mom and dad need to talk.
Do you
right
give
now.
yourself that time to have
And
that
we
conversation?
do. You have to check in.
Yeah.
And often, like on Mondays, we drive to the office in separate vehicles. Like she goes
I
every
stay
day,
all day and then he comes home.
partway to
Partway
get the
through the
kids,
day.
and we'll talk on the phone while we're driving to work, because that's our protected time where
Yeah,
we
you
can
can't be
have that
interrupted.
time where we can talk about what we need. And it's a new week, we can talk about new, because again, we try to
that.
compartmentalize. So over the weekend, we're not really doing it. And then on Monday morning, once we kind of get to that stoplight to turn onto the highway, we start talking about what we need from each other, and just really creating that space where I'm there, I'm available, just like she's available for me. It's a two-way street.
I love that.
And I think I have not always, like, this is my third marriage. I have not always been a good husband. Okay.
Sure.
I've had to learn through trial and error and just so many mistakes that I have to be able to own my stuff when I mess up, and I have to be gracious if she's offended me, and I have to let her know, like, hey, that just didn't land with me. That's not okay. And then knowing that that's not gonna like,
It's not going to break us.
it's not gonna break us, that we're gonna be okay. And it's being able to be vulnerable enough to let someone know your emotions so that they'll be vulnerable enough to you. And
That's what I was about to ask. Is
What-
like, what happens if now my wife and I are very open and very communicative, but this hasn't always been the case. So what about the spouses that are listening right now that they both shut down and they don't want to
So
express
here's one of the biggest pieces of advice I talk about when I'm doing couples work.
that? I don't know why we're talking about it. It's just really
totally
oh,
fine.
good.
Marriage, everybody thinks marriage is 50-50. It is not. It is 100-100. Because I have to expect you to show up with 100% today, and I have to expect you to show up with 100% today. But if you only show up with 60, because that's all you have, your 100% is only 60% of your overall potential, and you know that, you're like, I got this. It's okay.
Yeah.
I've got 60 to give too, and guess what? You get to 100. You get to 100. It's fine. But if you show up with 40 and you show up with 40, and you both know, hey, I was up all night with the kids. The baby was sick, and our daughter nursed until she was like almost 2. So and I was working late shifts and swing. And so my sleep was all over the place. I would say, like, I don't have any left to give. And he'd be like, I got this. Hey guys, we're going to go get takeout for dinner.
Yeah.
And he would go and grab it. We would still have our family dinner, but that 15 minutes of him taking the kids would let me just have the ability to, like, not have someone hanging on me, not have somebody, mom, hey, can I have this? Mommy, I need this. So nobody's crying, nobody's begging, right?
Yeah.
So having those check-ins, especially when you start to do it, you have to kind of make that time every morning. Set your alarm 5 minutes earlier so that you have 5 minutes before the day gets going, right? To say, I have X, Y, and Z going on. I'm not available from 11 to 3. If anybody needs anything, then it's like, cool, I got this, right? I'm going to be late tonight, so can you pick up takeout or can you cover dinner? Totally fine, right? So you start building in those communication pieces. Because
And then it could be little texts. Like, we'll just, throughout the day, I know she'll be in meetings. She knows I'm in meetings. It'll be like, I'll just check, hey, what time are you thinking so I can time dinner? Or is it going to be too late tonight and the kids have taekwondo? Let's just go out.
Right.
Like, just knowing, one of the biggest things I learned in therapy is I can buy time.
Yeah, you can buy time.
I can buy time. So going out for dinner means I bought time because I didn't have to go get the stuff from the grocery store that I didn't have ready already. And I don't have to sit in the kitchen and try to cook it while the kids need something. And, help me with my homework. And, the dogs are throwing up on the carpet, whatever.
Both of our kids are in basketball right now.
Wow.
And so, like, 12 nights a week, we have different
That took
things.
me a second. I was like, wait a minute.
Yep. The only days that are absolutely protected that nothing happens is on Sundays.
That's us too.
And that's just randomly because, like, there's taekwondo on Saturday that we have to do now because she has basketball Mondays and Wednesdays, but her classes for taekwondo are on Wednesdays. So now she has to do Friday, Saturday classes. Like, everything gets shifted around, right? And so there's times when it's like, it was something the other day. Oh, he had to do payroll before we flew out. It's like, I need to do payroll, and with Halloween coming up, and we had to get everything done early, but then the horses and the farm, and with time change on a farm, you think it's bad with kids. It's like absolute hell. It goes from, like, happiness and joy to misery in the
Animals
dark.
don't care.
Animals don't care. They still have to eat on a schedule. So now you're doing those same chores in the dark, right? So he has to try to get the 4 horses in. We're trying to do it between his meeting ending at 3:30 and having to leave at 4:15 for taekwondo. I'm like, my afternoon's flexible. I'll come take him to taekwondo. Can you get them there, drop them off? I can meet you at taekwondo.
Yeah.
And then he can go home and do the horses.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my God, that just gave me
So much time.
so much more time. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So, right. It's that little communication of, like, I can be flexible. I can finish what I need today from taekwondo sitting in, the parent
I have
space.
the most random thought that has nothing to do with anything except
Great.
communication.
Yes.
My wife is the wonderful, wonderful human, but she's service oriented. Like her love language is service,
Yep.
which drives me crazy because it's not mine. Mine is touch. I wish hers was touch. We'd have 20 kids.
Yeah. Exactly.
Same.
Same.
I think
Right there with you.
But every guy is
Yeah.
right there with you.
No, but I get home and I'm tired. I'm stressed. All this, it's like, I'm going to try to implement that. I'm sure it's going to take time. I love what you're counseling and telling us. But with that being said, she doesn't tell me what she wants. Like, hey, Tyson, will you empty the dishwasher? Hey, so I don't know what she's thinking. And sometimes she doesn't get angry with me, but I can tell she's disappointed that I didn't do something, but I didn't know.
So when you see that, what do you do?
I don't know. Like,
No,
because
but what are you
usually
doing
it's
now?
usually it's at the end. And
So
where
if
I'm
it was at work and you know that he was upset with you,
uh-huh,
what would you do?
call him. Just
Ask.
ask, yeah. But no, I do ask, but
Right.
but
So-
Are you gonna have to
no,
pay for
but-
this?
No,
no, to be fair, this is not therapy. I
Yeah.
am not licensed to practice in
Yeah.
the state of Utah.
But
Sure.
just asking you, that's okay. I'm a life coach as well, so it's, we
Great,
got it
great.
covered.
We're good.
no, but what I would say though
So-
is she would always say, now mind you, she doesn't do this anymore because I really am trying hard.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want you to want to do it. And I'm like, I do want to. That's why I'm asking.
So I would say to her, like, this is what I would say as a husband.
Okay, and then I'll give
And mind you,
you,
I'm
and
talking,
then I'll give you the real answer as a wife.
yeah, I'm
Well,
talking
but-
about
yeah.
generalization because
Yeah.
her and I are like, this isn't happening.
But this isn't
This
an
happens all the
uncommon
time.
theme. This
Yeah.
is lots
Very
of marriages.
common.
So for me, I would say it looks like you're upset with me right now, and help me understand what I can do here because I want to be helpful. I know you've had the kids all day. I know you've had a really busy day. What can I do to help right now? The other day it was just, can you just stir this on the stove while I do this other thing? And it was, so I just stirred on the stove and
That's
sat
funny.
there. And it was because I could tell. If
and
I
then the
just
kids are
helped-
like, "Daddy, this dinner is amazing," because they walk in and see it stirring,
And you're like,
So-
and he
Okay.
was like, "It was all mom.
It was all,
It was all
it's
mom."
like, but being able to just let her know, and I think it becomes habit, and change doesn't happen overnight.
It does.
no.
And this is like the whole iceberg analogy, right? So you know that the tip of the iceberg, 10% is above the water, right? The other 90% is under the water. So what you're seeing is really only 10% of what's really going on for her. And then for men, it's like even worse because we only have, happy, mad, glad, sad kind of thing. That's all we
Yeah.
got. We're pretty like emotionally stunted when it comes to being able to express our emotions
Yeah.
for most of us. So
And we're poor at communicating it.
and a lot of women assume that we're not attuned to what they need, right? I think that's what I don't like is when someone assumes that you're not picking up on what they're throwing down.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're not picking up on what they're throwing down. It's just you don't know how to communicate in the way that she needs you to communicate. And so it's really, that's where some of the pre-work as a couple comes in of how do you need me to ask you? What is it? What do you need from me? Like sitting down, not in the moment when the moment's happening, not when the stress is there, but when you could sit down and Monday morning quarterback it together and break it down and ask, what could I have done differently next time? How
Okay.
could I help you?
Which is
What should we do
interesting
with each other?
because my wife will flat out tell me,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
love that woman. She will tell me what she needs me to do. Like she'll
Yeah.
text me, "Can you do this?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
which
then
is great.
when
Yeah,
I
I
don't
love
do it, and then I'm like, "You seem upset right now. Why
Yeah.
are you upset?" And she's like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
Like, you didn't do what I specifically
I
told
sent
you
you
to
to the
do.
grocery store for the one thing, and I came back 5
But
hours later
again,
and
this
not
is
the
how
same.
my wife shows her love is by serving me and serving her family. And so, but
Right, which I
but-
think that's a common thing for wives and moms,
Uh-huh.
right? And then it's very common to be the dad on your side of things.
yeah,
One of the things that we figured out early on was also our family's routine. So every night before we go to bed, we start the dishwasher, right? So that we can put things away in the morning. It washes overnight, it's done. Put things away. So then as the day goes on, ideally, we're being able to add things in. There's not a sink full of dishes when dinner comes and one of us is trying to make dinner, right? But it's identifying what are those things? So when you come home, rather than her saying, "Tyson, I need you to go
I
empty the
love that. Just
dishwasher,"
identify the problem
you
and
could
do it.
just know that, hey, let me make sure the dishwasher's been emptied from the night before and start putting dishes in. Because especially for me, and I'm sure this is a common thing, but this is mine. Being the boss, being the mom at home all day decision fatigue and people needing me to give them the answer is exhausting.
Yeah.
I want to answer the questions. I want to show up. But what happens is that battery, just like your phone, starts at 100% when you wake up in the morning, and everything that is needing something is taking away from that, right? And so if I don't have anything to recharge during the day, by the time dinner rolls around, I'm like red zone.
But that's why caffeine. That's
Well, you're saying all this.
I know
like,
what you're saying.
But it's figuring that out between each other, right? So when now it's flipped. He is at home. He has the kids. I come home. He's usually in the middle of making dinner. The horses are hopefully, now that it's dark earlier, horses are in, chores are done. What do I need to do? Typically, I go straight to kids because the second I walk in, it's mommy, mommy, mommy.
Sure.
Right? I can kind of shield that, and then that gives also him a break to just have some quiet to like finish dinner or
Because
to
I
do the
love
dishes.
cooking, so like just let me cook dinner. Let's
Yeah.
just do the thing. If it's my night to cook,
Check the math
That's cool.
page, do the
Yeah.
thing, like whatever it needs to be, listen to the school stories. And like, I love that because I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. I was the parent home primarily, even when I worked at the hospital, because I worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Monday through Thursday, I was home all day. And then I worked swing shift. So I didn't even go to work until 3:00 in the afternoon. I was the primary parent all
Yeah.
day. So I miss that. I miss being home. I miss getting to see what happened at school. The nice thing now where I am, I can take time to be at the Halloween party. I can take time to be a classroom volunteer. We have that flexibility,
but not everyone does.
but not everybody does. And
Well,
so
and
how
one
do you share
thing-
that?
One thing that I
like
need to recognize probably more than I do, and it's like in moments like this where it's like I have the epiphany when we're on the show, and my wife is like, "How about at home? Can we have that
Yeah.
epiphany at home?" But it's like my wife, she's a kindergarten aide, and this year our school district switched to full day kindergarten. So, and we have a 6-year-old and we have an 8-year-old. So not only is she, getting kids up, getting out the door, my boy is slower than a turtle.
Energy vampires all day.
And then she's floating between 4 kindergarten classes all day long, helping 4 different classes, 4 different teachers. And then she's home, 4:00 until I get home about 6:00. And so I'm starting to pick up when she will text me like, I need to lay down, or like she's also like, she works through being sick, which, where she can with working with children.
Sure.
And so I'm starting to do things of like on the weekends, I'm the one that goes grocery shopping, and she's picked up on me.
You can buy time. Why don't you click list it?
So that's what I'm saying is she's picked up on how my brain works,
Yeah.
and she has created a list and like dairy, produce, or whatever, and it's a list that we can both update. Basically, so she's
Perfect.
found ways that connects with me, so I can get
Perfect.
everything, and I take the kids so that mom has some time,
time,
at home.
yeah.
So then I get to connect with my kids. I come home and I'm like, these guys are insane. And she's like,
You're telling
You're
me
like,
she's
it's
like-
been 45 minutes.
Exactly. But so it's but this is taking time, and I'm realizing that like, she's sick right now, and she's trying to like do everything she has to do, working full time and as a mom full time. Like she's
Yeah.
full time,
Everything.
4
Yeah.
things at a time. And then like when she finally does communicate like I need to lay down or I need to go to bed early, then it's like when it does click, I'm like, okay, shut the bedroom door, guys, leave mom be, let her recharge her batteries, because I think as a lot of guys we're just like blind to things like that because we just go about our day. We go about like, well,
My
I've got this
routine,
and me
'cause my
this,
routine's
and I've got,
important.
I'm going to work all day
Yeah.
long, and I unfortunately, there's I'm not going to name any names at all, but there was something that I experienced years and years ago of the most probably toxic traditional situation I think I ever, was pretty much stood up and after dinner and expected his plate to be cleared. And I'm like, that like seared into my brain. And I'm like, that is not the kind of husband this was long before I was in a relationship or whatever. And so to me, these are moments that as I'm starting to become more clear-minded, I'm starting, as I work into, I'm 7 years deep into working on mental illness recovery type stuff. I'm realizing that like, oh, if I pay more attention to something I'm trying to improve, it improves, right?
Weird,
Or if
right?
I work on it, it's weird how that works. And guys being innately fixers you think that would come a little bit quicker on things that, I don't know.
So I'm going to encourage you to read a short article
Okay.
by this doctor. Her name is Naomi Remen,
Okay.
and it's called Helping, Fixing, or Serving.
Okay.
And it's like 2.5 pages long. And it talks about, are you helping?
Mhm.
Which
You
then
are.
assumes the person needs help.
I didn't even need to
Are you
say.
fixing? Because
Mhm.
they're broken and they can't possibly do it.
Sure.
Or are you serving? And serving is like, your pain is like my pain. All suffering is like my suffering. It's about the common humanity
Yeah.
of the world. And I've used that article. I've gotten more miles out of that with clients, staff, and students because it shifts your perspective.
Yeah.
I don't have to help you.
You're-
I don't
you're
have to
capable.
fix you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not broken. I can serve. And when I serve, I
that.
do that with a whole heart. And I'm then coming along with you on the journey versus assuming you need me to do something. Because I think a lot of men work from a place, and this is gender roles, deep ingrained gender roles of, I have to be the leader of my family. It's like, no, I don't have to be the leader of my family. We can co-lead. I should fix this to make this whatever easier for my wife. No, I don't have to fix it and make it easier for her.
Mm-hmm.
How can I serve to help share the load?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, helping, fixing, or serving. Her name is Rachel Naomi Remen, and she was a family physician.
You should put that.
Yeah. Put that link for people.
Yeah,
to follow
helping,
up.
fixing, or serving. And it's, like I said, 2.5 pages. And
Super quick. Does it?
it doesn't take long to read, and it's brilliant because
Yeah.
it talks about her own experience being a patient and
Mm.
having a colostomy bag.
We should read it and then talk about it for one episode.
Sure.
maybe.
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
a
good
great.
Yeah.
I'll fly back out and talk about helping,
Yeah.
fixing, and serving. So
You could
Say,
literally
vice
talk about
versa.
this
I
all
kind of want
day.
to come hang out on your farm.
yeah,
Do it.
absolutely.
Might have to muck a stall or two, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Do it.
okay. I agree.
And I think, going back to the communication piece, this is one of those things where, on Sundays, on Saturday, whenever you have some downtime,
Yeah.
being able to say, let's look at the week. Where do you know already that you're going to need a little bit of extra support from me? I have this really big meeting on Wednesday, so I'm going to be like mostly done, right? So then she knows Wednesday after work, she's got it, right?
Yeah.
And then it's okay, well, let's bust out some crock pot meals, or, that's a night where we're going to grab takeout or grab pizza on the way home because you can buy time.
Even yesterday, we were out doing things, hiking and stuff with the kids. And I'm like, let's not go out for dinner tonight because we know the kids are going to have like this much before they're like spiraling down and needing to sleep. I'm like, let's just go to the grocery store and figure out something quick and easy. So we got like a rack of ribs that was pre-cooked, got some mac and cheese that was easy,
Some
some fruit. And
The
we're
kids
like,
thought
done.
it was the best dinner.
Yeah.
And
It was
but
great.
It was about us communicating, going like, what do you have in you? Do you have sitting through dinner in a restaurant and having to like
And
try to keep
managing,
them on point
right?
versus
That's a lot of energy.
and entertaining them and like trying to keep them like, versus, hey, let's do this. Everyone kind of a good night. Instead, we took them back to the condo, went down to the games room, played some foosball, played some table tennis, and then we got to sit in front of this cool fireplace while they played. And then they
There was
came
some
up
laughing
and then we had dinner and it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? They don't know any different. But it was what we needed. Our emotional bandwidth that night.
Yeah.
Said this is what we have.
because your experience makes your kids experience something that much
Exactly.
better.
And you know what? This morning, both of them were like, individually, my son was like, Dad, thank you so much for hiking with me yesterday. And then my daughter's like,
Oh, cool.
thank you so much for playing, table tennis with me. That was so great. And I'm like, what was your favorite part? She's like, well, or I said, I really liked the foosball. She's like, I really liked it was you and Mummy versus me and Owen on foosball. It was great. I'm like, there you go. Like, so
You
we're
created
building
core
core
memories.
memories by looking after our needs
Yeah.
that we needed in that moment so that we stayed sane.
Yeah.
So, quick question, might be a little bit off topic, but I mean, obviously, we're talking almost kind of like marriage counseling in the moment. Like, so one thing that I try to work on, because my wife is very good at communicating, and I don't feel like I do it enough justice at times.
You're
right?
getting better though.
Well, one of the things you guys might know is obviously with bipolar, like eroding interpersonal relationships, like complete lack of empathy, stuck in my own head. I've had to work at like paying attention to other people because I was stuck in my own head for so long, right? One of the things like my wife tells me all the time, she's amazing at taking pictures and recording events and like amazing. And I think this is a husband thing, right?
Yeah. She's really good.
My wife is like, she will remind me, and it's not in the furthest thing from nagging, because she's like, she'll even say jokingly, she's like, I'm going to die one day and there will be nothing with me in it.
Yeah.
Like to the point where, I mean,
that's why when we're on vacation, we travel a lot, that I'll see a family and the mom, I'm like, can I take your picture so that
my wife does
proof that you got to be on vacation too?
So like,
and they're like, oh my God, that would be amazing. Like that, like mom to mom 30-second connection of like, without it being a selfie.
yeah.
Right? Because we've got lots of these pictures with, my arm in it, because it's the family selfie picture.
Yeah.
He has gotten a lot better at doing that though.
So the thing is, like, I think what happens a lot is that I don't want to call it like main character syndrome, where guys, we have the ability to like think that our problems are the problem, right? Like, I feel like, I mean, in a, husband and wife, relationship, or maybe in other like partnerships, just in general, you'll have sometimes one person who kind of might feel like they're kind of disappearing a little bit into the background because one person has so much going on. Like me and my crazy mental illness episodes, my wife was in the background a lot because it was like the Logan show for so long, because it was...
you were manic for a very long time.
Well, I was manic for a long time and depressed for a long time. And
I have to defend him.
And then, another time it was like, oh, I've got this amazing business opportunity, because I think, like this manic episode was hallucinogenic. This one was, I'm going to run for president of the United States, right? Like it's so crazy. But so one of the biggest things that I try to pay a lot of attention to is making sure that like my wife sees that I see her, right? Because I didn't for a long, long time. And that weighs on somebody, especially in a committed relationship, right? So I don't even know what I guess not even really a question with that, of just kind of like, how do you keep that on the forefront of your mind as somebody who, like, you see your partner and you want them to feel the love and all this stuff, but you have so much going on that sometimes you forget, maybe even if they've told you flat out what they need. Right?
Well, and I can speak to it from kind of the other side, because this business was Megan's dream.
Sure.
Right? And it wasn't necessarily...
And it's thriving too.
And it wasn't necessarily when I moved here, I gave up my career in Canada. So I can't be a psychiatric nurse in the US. It doesn't exist unless I become a psych NP. I wasn't a prescriber in Canada. So I gave up all of everything I knew to come here. When she came to Canada, she was able to still be in her career. She was still a social worker. That didn't change. And so it's struggling, feeling like I'm in the back burner, and that I'm not getting what I need or want or anything else. And then I switched it to gratitude. Of how cool is it that there's always a parent home with our kids? How cool is it that we get to do these trips together? How cool is it that we get to build what our ideal image is of behavioral health together? And once I switched it from like the victim, and got out of the victim, I was able to feel so much more present and supportive of her. Once I just got into, gratitude, because gratitude is amazing. It's so easy to be stuck in your head. I got into a lot of Stoic philosophy, and that really helped me, the Stoics, and just realizing that, life isn't as bad as it seems. And actually the struggle is the way. The answer is in the struggle. And because it wasn't always easy for us. And there's times where I'll feel like the pity party, especially if I'm in a depressive phase myself, right? Like I told her last night, like, listen, it's really hard for me when you're at the office and I'm at the farm by myself, and especially when I'm in a depressive phase of my mood, it's really hard for me. And so she's like, you know what? You're right. Why don't you start coming to the office a couple of days a week while the kids are at school? Like simple solutions, asking for what you need, and then your partner being there to kind of support you with it. I don't know.
Love that.
And I think, I think one of the things, like, I love to get my nails done. It's the one.
You have pretty nails.
Thank you.
So do you, Prentice.
These aren't fantastic.
See my toenails.
I get my hair done twice a year. I'm not a go to the salon every 6 weeks, get touch up.
Yeah.
My nails, and we both enjoy massages, right? And so I used to, especially when the kids were young and I was staying home more, I felt guilty, right? Guilt is huge, to leave Prentice and I were already never seeing each other because we're like ships passing in the night with our work schedules. So when we did have time together and he could be with the kids and I didn't have to be at work and I want to leave so I could go get my nails done. And that was a big shift that I had that conversation. He's like, no, go get your nails done.
Yeah.
Right. Because then the cool thing was he's like, I'm going to take the kids to the park and we're going to have a great time. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you get to have this really cool experience and build a relationship independently with the kids as their dad.
Yeah.
And I get to have an hour to go get my nails done and just sit and recharge and just be Megan and not a wife and not a mom and not the social worker and not that, any of the other hats that I wear. And it has started to make it a lot easier to do those little things to take care of myself. Right. And so I think not every woman wants to get their nails done. Not every woman wants to go get pedicures or get their hair done. But figuring out what is that thing or things that speak to her. Is there, a favorite Ben & Jerry's ice cream that you can, when you notice that she's had a hard week or she's had to pick up a lot, you stop on the way home and you get, 2 pints of ice cream and, you guys get to have a mini date night once the kids are in bed. People think that dates or quality time have to be these like grand gestures of, we're going to get dressed up and we're going to have a babysitter and it's going to be an all day thing. And we could literally just be watching Netflix and eating ice cream together with no phones, just sitting next to each other, sharing that time, and you understanding that, like, wow, actually, I really did need that right now, right? Or having whatever Uber Eats or delivery of, like, lunch or something for her, or a coffee because you know that she didn't get one this morning, or figuring out how to, like, if you have flexibility to drop something off at work, whatever it could be, figuring it out, especially when service is their love language and it's not yours, right? How do you, and I use love languages with clients all the time, especially in couples work, is figuring out what your partner's love language is and then how to speak their love language.
Ooh,
whether it's your language or not.
I sound like a vacuum the whole day then.
Yeah.
Because you can be bilingual.
Yeah, I like that a lot because you can be bilingual.
Right? I mean, if you can be bilingual in communication language, right? Why can't you be bilingual in love language?
Well, and then just I think natural human reciprocity, right? Like it's like if you're not getting what you need, but you start giving, there's I think a higher chance that your partner might see that and then reciprocate. Right?
I think the flip side too is when you're in a situation where you feel like your needs aren't being met.
Yeah.
Staying really,
to use your words.
but and also staying really curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not curious and open, like I use Cole as my reminder. I say it's a dirty 4-letter word, but Cole is from a psychiatrist named Dan Siegel. And Cole is, can you be curious about what the person's intention is or what's going on for them? Can I be open? Which means, can I just kind of like be open to what's happening here and recognize that this is in the present moment, that maybe things are bumpy. Maybe I'm not getting it right. Maybe I'm not speaking her love language. Maybe could that be what it is? Can I be accepting? And I add /allowing. So can I accept that that's the reality and that this is the present moment? And then can I show her loving kindness and myself loving kindness? Because love, it's about not just about showing the other person loving kindness, because I think we're really good at like, oh, I need to make sure I attend to them, but you can't lose Tyson in it while you're doing it. Again, you want to flex and bend so that you can help speak your wife's love language.
We always compromise.
But you have to also be true to yourself, and it wouldn't be something that would be so outside of what you would normally do that it would then you're kind of left
like it loses
regretting it.
authenticity.
Yeah, you're not. It's like so put on. It's like I've poured it on real thick this time, right? So
well, and I think it's one thing. It's really. I mean, it's called the honeymoon phase for a reason, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, everything's perfect, and then I think that you like the roommate phase, and like we all go through these these bumps and stuff. And you said you've previous marriages and trauma you've faced there. That the one thing is like, if there isn't a situation like arose, like what you dealt with, if it's just everyday average common problems, things like that we all kind of go through, or you've kind of lost I try to remember in times where I'm upset about something, like, okay, there was at one point where I would have fought through anything and thrown anything out the window to just go sit on the couch with her.
Mhm.
When we were 20, 21 and 22, I used to drive. I was living here in Utah. She was living in Sacramento. I would leave work at Friday and I would get to her house in Sacramento at 2:00 in the morning.
Never done that.
And I would sit there and hang out with her
Feeling.
all weekend. And then I would leave Sunday night with just enough time to pull into work at
Yeah.
8 a.m. on Monday. But then it's like, but now, 12 years later,
Mhm.
all like, oh, if she's asking me to do the dishes because I've had a hard day. But it's like, I used to haul
Literally
through the desert in
Yeah.
the middle of the night to see
Yeah.
her for a couple of days. But it's like, so I love that you guys have been here and talking about this, and I love the direction that it's gone, because I think that's dad bods and beards. That's what it embodies, is just the everyday average stuff that like we lose ourselves in the day. We lose ourselves in the emotion. We live, I mean, like you just said, like finding Megan and just things that make you happy. And like, that's one thing that I'm learning and trying really hard to implement is, my wife lost herself for so many years in just the service of me, that she's like, hey, there's this thing I want to go to with some friends. And I'm like, whatever, if that works, if that's what you want to do, like, I'll change my schedule, because that's things she never used to do, because she was so wrapped up in taking care of her babies, because I could barely take care of myself. So I love this. I almost feel bad that you guys live in Oregon, because I'm like, when can you come back?
Yeah.
the kids are loving Utah, so
We got farms here.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's beautiful here. You
yeah,
guys-
it's gorgeous.
but
It's fun.
no, thank you guys so much for
Yeah,
coming. I feel like we could
absolutely.
sit here and talk for hours with you
We
guys.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This might be broken up in a couple episodes.
But-
That's how we do it.
But no, like one thing that we like to do is we like to leave challenges, or at least I say we, but I always do, right?
I like it. It's part of, he starts it and he ends it. It works for me.
But I almost want to ask, and I kind of put you guys on the spot, but I feel like you're good on the spot. Speak with the audience, kind of being. We thought it was gonna be primarily men, but I just was finding out this week that like there's
It's everyone.
Yeah.
a friend of a friend shared something. She's in Southern California, and she shared a story of ours that she's friends with my wife.
Mhm.
And it's like, why are you sharing something from Dad Bods and Beards? And it's like, you're not our demographic, but we're finding out that
Yeah.
people are.
Yeah.
So seeing as you guys might have, the ear of quite a bit of men, like in the traditional sense of relationships, but also we're finding that a lot of women and other partnerships listen
Yeah.
to this show. I kind of encompassing everything we've talked about. What's like little nuggets you guys might need, like of a challenge or something you could leave with everybody.
Leave a challenge.
Ooh.
Something that they can work on.
So I would say,
Can there be two? Can we each have
Yeah.
one?
yeah,
Of
can we
course.
each have one? So my challenge would be to allow yourself to be vulnerable to your spouse and apologize
Hmm.
for all of the harms that you may have caused in the relationship, and to ask them to help guide you so that you can be the better spouse, the better father, and the partner that they need you to be. And it's not about that you're less than, but it's, I want to know how I can take it to the next level,
Mm.
because I always need to be striving for that next level. And I think where we are now compared to where we were 4 years ago when we started the business, we were tight then, but we're just so much closer now. And it's just by asking, and it's not from an insecure place of what you need. It's just, how can I do better, and asking permission for feedback.
Hmm.
I give you permission to give me the hard feedback and to give me the hard talk when I need it. And it's not about scolding. It's about helping me grow as a man.
I don't want to ask so many more questions, but I
Yeah.
won't. Because I like that.
Yeah. I think similar, isn't it funny? Similar, I think I would encourage couples to make time to have that carved out, like half an hour. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a lot of time. But schedule some date nights, schedule some, movies at home after the kids go to bed. Again, it doesn't have to be magnificent and grand. It could literally be, we made the kids dinner. Now I'm gonna go grab takeout. We're gonna have a nice dinner at home. Something
Sometimes
that
we have our
love.
kids sit at one table at a restaurant. We sit right next to them at the next table.
And we're like,
And we have our own date.
yeah, and our kids are 7 and 9, so not too different. And so, I mean, we're literally right there, but they think it's
the best
they
thing
get to be
ever.
fancy. But I would
I love
say encouraging the communication, right? And so I always ask people when I do couples work is to tell them one thing that you really love and appreciate about them, not about what they do, but about who they are. Right? I could love that you do the dishes when you get home. I could love that you take the garbage out. I could love that you mow the lawn. But I love that when you look at me, there's nobody else in the room, right? What is it about them, right? Because anybody can take the garbage out. Anybody can put the dishes away, right? So none of the transactional stuff. One thing that you love and appreciate about who they are, and then one thing that you need this week, right? And so if you get in the habit of that on like a weekly basis, weekends work well because usually that's resetting the week. One thing I need this week is, and one thing I really appreciate about you, like from last week, so that you're constantly going through that with the gratitude.
That's really good.
I love that. So where can we find you? Where can anybody listening find you guys? You have like social media. I mean, obviously your practice is in Oregon.
Yep. Practices in Oregon. Here's a little, can we drop?
Yeah, of course.
We have some big plans. So we are currently Cascade Counselling and Consulting. Most of that is the counseling piece. Prentice and I do some business consulting on the side, and some compliance work. We are really excited. We are going to be rebranding and relaunching, hopefully in the new year, to Cascade Wellness Centers. And so we're going to be
I like that a lot.
integrating a lot more for holistic wellness. Our vision is to kind of co-locate and bring in massage therapy and acupuncture and even primary care and other health to be able to kind of be co-located in our clinics. And then the other big piece is that we are going to be expanding outside of Oregon. We're not quite sure
What that
where
looks
all
like.
of those places are going to be yet because
Apparently Utah.
apparently Utah,
Wellness is big here.
there's lots of licensure things, right? It's a highly regulated field, so we have to ensure licensure, but we're going to be expanding outside of Oregon. So
That's awesome.
That's cool. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks so much for being on here.
Thanks for having us. It's been great. And
We're online, we're on socials, we're on all the things.
Learned a lot. Felt a lot.
Oh, well, thank you guys.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. It means the world to us. If you have a chance, please give us a 5-star review, as well as write something a little pretty in there so that we know that you know that we know that you care. Anyway, have a great day, guys. I can't do it.
Dude, that was good. I like that. You can't redo it without laughing. That was good.